Here we are. I'm going to call this public meeting, board meeting number 953 to order. And I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are privileged and grateful to be meeting on unceded territories of the Squamish and St'át'imc nations. I would accept a motion to approve the agenda, but just before we do, I'll just check with staff that there are no additions to the agenda. Okay, hearing none, then the motion would be that the agenda of this meeting be approved. Can someone make that motion?
I can make that motion.
Thank you. Seconder for that? Thank you very much, Rebecca. And any discussion on the agenda? Okay, all in favor? And I think I have, yes, I have all the trustees arrayed in front of me. Thank you. And a few other people. So we have two sets of minutes to adopt, and the first ones are the minutes from the board meeting on March 10th.
That the minutes of the board meeting held on March 10, 2021 be accepted.
Thank you, Rebecca. Any, a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, David. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. And one other set of minutes, the summary minutes of the in-camera meeting.
That the summary minutes of the in-camera board meeting held on March 10, 2021 be accepted.
Thank you. Seconder for that one?
I'll second it.
Thank you, David. Any discussion on those minutes? All in favor? And that's carried. Next item on the agenda is chairperson's remarks, and I have a couple. First of all, I wish to acknowledge, and I've been doing this for the last number of meetings, or perhaps for the last year, but I really wish once again to acknowledge the incredible amount of work and the skilled work being done by all of our staff as we work our way through this pandemic period. And I just want to make note of the fact that the rules all changed again while our staff was supposed to be getting a well-deserved break at spring break. And I know from the flurries of emails and texts and whatnot that was going back and forth that in fact, many of our staff were hard at work through an awful lot of the spring break. In addition to all of the work being done by our leadership in the district, there's just an awful lot of stress for everybody involved in the system as we manage this pandemic and keep children learning effectively right across the district. And I want to express on behalf of the board and by extension, the community, our gratitude for that amazing work being done by our staff at all levels of the system. That's my first remark. And my second one is related to the questions, the last item on the agenda today, which is questions of clarification from the public. Those of you who attend the meeting regularly know that we had a couple of bumps in the road on this particular item in the past where people weren't sure that their questions were being answered or acknowledged. Staff have worked hard at coming up with a system to make sure that that does not happen again. It should go much smoother tonight. And I just want to review for the benefit of our viewers and participants what that is going to look like. So first of all, just a reminder that the guideline for our policy around questions of clarification from the public is that the questions should relate to an item on the agenda, on tonight's agenda. Now, having said that, we're anxious to answer all your questions. We do ask that it be related to tonight's agenda simply because those are the questions we're most likely to be prepared for and be able to give you a complete and satisfactory answer. Should we receive a question that's not on the agenda, we'll still try and answer it. However, if we can't give you as complete an answer as we think you deserve, then we will ask to continue the conversation in another setting at a later date, and we'll make sure that you get an answer one way or the other. So with that said, I'm going to read you the guidelines for the questions tonight, just so that you can be sure that your questions will be dealt with. First of all, we're asking that you submit the questions to the board via email And the address is on the website, but it's board@sd48.bc.ca. So that's board@sd48.bc.ca. Questions can be posed at any time, starting now. We do recommend that you wait until an agenda item is complete before you send a question in, simply because it's quite possible that your question would be answered during the agenda item and you won't have to ask it. For transparency purposes, the question, along with the name of the person asking it, will be posted on the screen during the question period. If the question has already been addressed during the presentation or during an earlier question, we will identify when the question was addressed, including a brief summary of the answer, just so that you understand that your question was acknowledged and heard and answered. If in the event that we receive a high volume of questions from the public, we're going to pause for a break. So we'll take a very brief recess to organize the questions into themes, just to more efficiently answer them and more effectively use the available time. And in the event that we get high volumes of questions, we may have to take a 5-minute break, or if there's a lot of questions, a 10-minute break, just in order to get that organized so that we can do a good job for you. So that's the new protocol for answering your questions this evening. That concludes my remarks, and I'll go to the trustees to ask whether they have any public agenda remarks to make this evening.
Maybe if I could just jump in here for 1 second, Rick, and just give a thank you to all the people who worked really hard to create this process for answering the questions of clarification from the public. Very appreciated from my standpoint, my point of view. So thank you so much to everyone for that.
Yep, thank you. Any other remarks from trustees? Okay, moving down to superintendent's remarks.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for your comments earlier, Rick, for the staff. I'll pass that along to everyone for sure. We appreciate your acknowledgement of everybody in the system. I'm just going to take this down for a second. The remark I have this evening is just to acknowledge the Don Ross Middle School Action Team for Partnerships again, and how they have moved into the next stage of their courtyard project. The Action Team for Partnerships has been actively involved in connecting with their students, as we know, in the school to start a planting process. And recently, thanks to Diana Gunstone and the other parent volunteers, they were able to transplant some native plants from a local construction site into the courtyard. And then students were engaged in learning about each of the native plants, the Indigenous uses and traditions as they relate to honoring and caring for plants, forest food production, and how to transplant with consideration and care of each of the plants. On April 10th, a group of volunteers also came to Don Ross to construct 6 more raised beds. And then they're going to get started with continuing that planting process. And then as part of all of this, Don Ross was able to announce that they were the recipient of a $2,000 grant from the Farm to School Foundation and a $1,980 grant from the Squamish Art Council. Both of these grants will help further revitalize the courtyard, and we thank them for their interest in that project. So congratulations to that team.
Great, thanks. Anything else, Lisa?
No, thank you.
Okay, any questions for Lisa on that report? All right, then moving down to Secretary Treasurer's remarks.
I have no remarks at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no delegations this evening, but we do have what is always our favorite part of our meeting, which is a student/staff presentation. And this one is going to be presented, I believe, by Roberta Kubik. And I want to pass the floor over to you, Roberta. Oh, you're on mute.
I can't believe we still do that. Anyway, thank you, Trustee Price and Amishkite. Bonjour, hello. I'd like to acknowledge that that Mario is here with me, and Tanina is attempting to get on as we speak. She is going to join us. So Archie is going to show, Tanina's here, fabulous, Archie has our presentation. And what it is, it's our alignment with the refreshment plan and our school plan with our harvest garden, the pit cook, using the 4 blankets, and our inclusive school project with Set BC. Now with Set BC, what you're going to see on the screen is the green screen. They gave us a lot of environmental, inclusive technology, and that is anywhere from covering of lights to rocker chairs to rocker stools for our children, to iPads, and to the technology of green screens, to training all our staff members who are EAs and teachers and admin on different software. So I am just going to let our students speak, and we will, Archie, you can show our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enchash, Nanaktush, Inkakushin, Lil Ulkan, Statlium Kan, Uchamilch, Niti Hatya, Mutash Sapala, Shamach Gwachicha, Tanina Williams. Welcome to the territory of the Lilwat people. And I'm so happy to see you here today, and to know that you're going to be here today to talk with, to learn about what we are doing at Signal Hill. One of the principles that we're focusing on is Atcha'ul. Atcha'ul is when we value our own expertise and consider how it helps the entire community beyond ourselves. To teach oneself, to prepare oneself for listening and learning, embracing my own strengths and gifts, and using them for the benefit of others. I just love that, and I can see how that's happening and the care that has been taken. We are really focusing on, collaboration, learning from diverse perspectives and from generations. So, in our way of knowing and being, we believe that an infant can be an elder to teach us. And we know elders teach us too as well. And I love it that we are focusing on Atcha'ul, on collaboration, on inquiry. It's good to focus on these things, to be excited about learning and ways of being, and also on the 4 blankets, and that we also focus on the medicine wheel that was gifted to School District 48. And that's really important. That's a very special gift, because we have other students in our school, Indigenous students in our school, that don't belong to St'át'imc Nation or Lil'wat Nation. So it's really important that we teach what has been gifted to us, so that we can help our many other students that have been displaced by residential school and day school and the 60s scoop, and by being apprehended and put into care. So that's very important that we do that. And I'm so excited that we are reflect on these pieces for our children, and that they benefit all children, because we all need a really strong sense of being and our identity, and that's so important. So thank you so much, and have a good day, and we'll see you. I hope to see you soon.
We are honored to live, work, and play on the traditional unceded ancestral territories of the Statlin Nation. Enshush, Roberta Cubic. My birthplace is Cape Breton. This gave me the privilege to learn, live, and play in Mi'kmaq territory and learn about many cultures. Today, I'm a guest of the Litwat Nation, where I live, work, and play. This is a privilege and a time of great learning as an adult. Shwatka.
Inshash Mario Tanishi. I grew up on the unceded traditional territory of the Sinixt people in the Kootenays, specifically in the location of Trail, BC. I want to welcome you on our journey through our harvest garden, our pit cook, our inclusive schools initiative with SET BC, and ultimately our journey through our enduring understandings and our collaboration and willingness and ability to learn as we all work together at Signal Hill.
The School Garden has been created as part of a wider seed-to-table education journey which aims to deeply engage our whole school community with reconciliation at its heart. Our harvest garden engages us in cross-cultural learning experiences within food gathering, food growing, food preparation, and the food in the ceremony, celebration, and community. This project is rooted in addressing reconciliation through education and celebration of Indigenous practices. The process is part of our ongoing learning of the Indigenous ways of knowing and being. The Litwat principles of learning in the forward blanket of self, family, community, and land culture. The use of food has two main features: to deepen awareness of our connection to the land and to bring together all the diverse people in the school body and community in a shared appreciation of our differences and our strengths. It helps build positive thoughts on our self-identity, individual and shared experiences in our cultures, and narratives from people within our community.
Josh Tyrese, we are here to talk about the pit cook.
Well, it was pretty fun, and I learned how to cook a few new things, and yeah, it was just pretty fun.
It was hard because we had to get a lot of stuff for it, and it was fun, and I learned new stuff.
SD 48 education plan, starting with the pathways of learning, play and exploration, purpose and authenticity, collaboration and engagement. The critical competencies and content focus on Indigenous knowledge of sustainable practice, learning, understanding, and respect Indigenous land and resources, responsibility, leadership, goal settings. Our pit cook inquiry aligns with our enduring understanding of inclusion is a right, diversity is a strength, personalization is the way. Please take a moment to rest on one of our picnic tables. They've been painted in the medicine wheel colors of yellow, white, black, red. They're intended to open up discussion about spirit, emotion, mind, and body, and help facilitate a healing ethos.
Hi, my name is Miss Adams. I teach a grade 5, 6, 7 class here at Signal Hill. At the start of the school year, our community garden was bursting full of delicious, juicy big tomatoes. So we decided as a class to go out and pick all the weird and wonderful shaped ones, including the delicious looking heirlooms, which we went through why some tomatoes don't have to be red to be delicious. We had some purple and green ones in there as well. We had different students in charge of different jobs, and we went through knife safety, which luckily a few of our kids had done our healthy lunches the previous years with Miss Jazik, so they understood and were able to teach their classmates safety in the kitchen. Then following week we had a pasta sauce lunch, so we cooked up some pasta in the class, dished it up for everyone, and we all had some delicious pasta. And now we have frozen pasta at the school for pasta sauce at the school for any students or classes that would like it. We certainly enjoyed it. Thanks.
What does she get?
All right, Tamira, what does the sorting hat say?
1.
Excellent. All right, Naya, what does the sorting hat say?
Oh my god.
Naya is in...
Stop. 1.
Oh, Naya is also in house number 1. All right, Max, what does the sorting hat say? Oh.
1.
Max is also in house number 1.
Oh my god, come on, Nash is 1.
Nash is looking at the sorting hat. 2. Nash. Evan, what does the sorting hat say you'll be in?
2.
2. 1.
Who was that? I don't know. The bush ruffles. What was that, a wolf?
Beauty is happiness, and playing with friends. Nature has lots of animals. Animals are also beauty. Being unique is magical because everyone is unique in their own way, and it doesn't matter what other people say. That's what I think is beauty. I feel beauty in playing because when I play with my friends, it makes me feel beautiful because I have really nice friends. That's what I think beauty is.
Being unique is beautiful because you can be different from many other people.
Beauty is in people's hearts, and everyone has a friendship of beauty in a unique way.
So there you are. We did iMovies, and the kids were very excited. They're pretty funny kids. They said, "Hey, were you in the movies before this?" We were shooting the movies and doing take 1 and take 2 and quiet on the set. So you know what? It was a really enjoyable experience creating this for you. And thank you for all your support, because through the trustees and, the executive of the school board, it allows us to do what we do with your support. So Kukshum Cow.
Roberta, what's the next step for you guys?
The next step? Well, you know what? It's just, this is all have to do with our school learning plan. So I think the next step is kind of what we're doing in the, with this iMoving with the kids, is to really get the vernacular down of ahahul, of, the 4 blankets. So it becomes an everyday language and an everyday sense of belonging at Signal Hill. So that we're in that step, Trustee Rick, but we wanted, so any family that walks through our doors know what we're talking about and know what the kids experience. We want the kids going home and teaching families and the community to know. And also collaboration and, relative projects. And we're working really hard with our relative projects, because we're bringing in some math. And Tanina, thank you very much, because she's teaching us Indigenous ways of knowing in math, because we do know that we need to improve our assessments in math. So that is intertwined with our learning plan and Indigenous ways of knowing and being. And we want our assessments to shine. So we are working with Carol Fullerton and training our students and ourselves on it. And there are next steps, Rick.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from trustees?
I just have a comment for you, Roberta. I noticed that your garden was looking very well cared for September. You don't always see that with school gardens that get neglected over the summer. So you've obviously got a very engaged school community there taking care of it through the summer. And I didn't see irrigation, so I'm assuming there was hand watering involved with those massive tomatoes.
Oh, you know what? I have to say the board office was amazing, and Pemberton Stewardship we all got together, in community, and we have underground irrigation, and we were very creative and digging a hole all around the baseball field, and Paul Els and everyone was with us and helping us to get irrigation. But that said,
That's great.
Every families and staff members would take a week each summer. So they would weed the garden, and they would be able to, whatever food they could harvest. So everyone had a few weeks at a time.
Very nice. Any other questions or comments from trustees or board staff? Hi, Tanina.
Hi, I know I'm not board staff, but I just want to say, when we were approaching using the 6 principles of Willet learning, Roberta and I were like, I was like, well, how do we do this? That's a lot. How do we? And then once we chatted a bit about it, and using Akhaul really made sense, because I think it really flows really well with the 4 blankets and the medicine wheel. And then, but not just that, I think it follows our way of knowing that everybody's an expert. And that's so important, that we see that across the board, that everybody, and I've shared this in my higher learning experience, right? Like I've shared this in my classes, and I've just said, everybody's a doctor, and we need to start seeing that. And I think that is definitely moving us in that direction. And I'm so pumped about the math. We're going to be sharing on June 20th with the schools that I work with. We're going to be doing videos of math with weaving. So, it's exciting.
It certainly is. Any other questions or comments from trustees or staff?
I was just wondering if maybe Tanina, could you, or anyone at all, I don't need to put anyone on the spot, but maybe spell, is it Akhaul? If maybe you could spell that phonetically for me, and I'll write it down, and then I can learn how to say it, because it's a lovely phrase and I'd really like to be able to use it.
For sure. I don't want to get the spelling wrong, so I'm just going to actually.
It's okay. Phonetic is perfect.
So A.
Yeah.
Like sound.
Oh,
Mario's
Go, Mario.
Mario's putting something up on the screen for me.
Oh yeah, so that's how you spell it.
Okay. A7XE7UL. Okay. And so then if I was to match English letters to those letters, what would they be?
So the A is a.
Yeah.
The 7 is a staccato. It's a stop, right?
Okay.
The XE is a ch. And then the 7, of course, is another quick pause.
Yeah.
And then
UL. Okay. Oh. Okay. I will practice. Thank you so much.
Actually, I can. You can go on the internet and look up the 6 principles of Lilwet learning, and if you go onto that site, you can actually press on it, and it'll say it to you.
6 principles of
Lilwet. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, that's easier.
I love that. That's terrific. Okay, I'll go to the website. Thanks a million, Tanina.
Anything else?
Rick, I just want to say thank you to Roberta, Mario, Tanina for embedding so much more culture and language into the school. That perspective on inclusion is critically important. The colors of the picnic tables are really vibrant, and I love the way the students describe what that area is for, and then your gardens and the pit cooks, and you're just doing a fabulous job to honor local culture, which is long overdue for all of us. So thank you. And Tanina, thanks for teaching us and guiding us through it all.
And if I could make a couple of remarks. First of all, Roberta, you thanked us for our support, but at the time you were saying that, it occurred to me that it's us that should be thanking you, because you're showing how to bring life to our strategic plan and our ed plan so that they become more than plans on a piece of paper. We see them in the hearts of children. And we love that. So thank you. Thanks for your support. And Tanina, your phrase, using our gifts for the benefit of others, is exactly what you've done this evening. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And I just want to say, I'm so glad that you guys chose to do the picnic tables that way, because I've been trying to rack my brain on how to get the medicine wheel out in the yard, and you guys did it. I don't think I ever talked to you about that idea, Roberta. So I was like, oh, wow, that's cool.
Okay, disclaimer, Claire Fuller was on it when we were talking about the garden and the medicine wheel, and she was on getting it painted. She was determined.
Awesome.
One of our parents.
Yeah, Claire and I work really well together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure her and I.
Lovely example of community collaboration. Thank you all. Thanks for attending. Mario, I know that you will have been heavily involved in this, so thank you very much for your part in it too.
Yeah, and I'll be brief because everybody said a lot of really amazing and true things. I just want to acknowledge the fact that we just saw the end result of a very long process that involved a wonderful vision by the school staff and PAC and community members, and then had the foresight to go and apply for some grants. And the CETBC grant, I think they were one of 6 schools in the province that won this grant. And then the civil forfeiture grant was another one for the garden. And just to be able to think so forward into what's going to help community and help learning and attach to the ed plan is a real skill. And it was a huge collaborative effort by everybody up at that school. So and the end results were amazing. So thank you for all of that.
I just want to say too, I really do want to mention Claire Fuller at this time. She has really been a force for our kids. I've definitely built a relationship with her. And the last grant that she filled out, we didn't get it. And the grant people actually gave her really good advice. And in her learning process, she has requested that I be more involved this time when she finishes filling it out. And the main part was they really wanted to see more about why she was what she was utilizing about Indigenous ways of knowing and being, and that they were very clear that she needed to be a lot more solid on that. And she was such a humble person when she talked to me, because when she asked me about it, she's, you know, she flippantly asked me and I gave her my information and I said, yeah, we're not getting that grant. I knew that right away. And then she came back and she was, we didn't get it. And then I'll be honest with you, it was because I didn't put enough of what you had told me. And it was really, I was like, oh, so beautiful, you know, like to be so humble to admit that was really quite gracious of her. And so we've been really collaborating and a long process to refilling out that grant. And we're going to be doing some cool stuff in next year, hopefully, as we hopefully can come together more.
Thank you very much. Okay, folks, after that delightful presentation, we get to move on to the next delightful presentation, which will be the year-end review of the Pathways to Learning Education Plan, Lisa McCullough. And this one's listed as part 1, so we can look ourselves for more at future meetings. Take it away, Lisa.
Okay, Rick, I'm hoping you can hear me through the mask. I'm fogging up pretty badly. I'm going to do this. We're going to have Paul Lorette and Chris Nicholson, our assistant superintendents, go through a data walk this evening to share some of the results of how we're doing in our education plan. And we've called it a 3-part series because this part is just sort of the here's what. So we're not going to get into a deep dive today about these results or draw conclusions from them. At the next board meeting in May, we'll do the so what, which is so what are the implications of this data? What have we learned? What are some things we should be taking away? And we'll use Michael Fullen's work with BCSTA to go over effective strategic planning. And then in June, we'll do the now what, which is, so where do we go from here? We'll have our education plan. It will not change, but each year we set an ambitious annual plan and service plan for that work. And this data today will inform what we recommend to you in your strategic planning in May, and then what our service plan is in June. So that's why a 3-part series, because it is going to be fairly lengthy to do all 3. And so this evening is just part 1. Here's what our data are telling us. And I'm going to let Paul and Chris take it away.
Okay, thanks very much, Lisa. Just quickly going to do a sound check. Thumbs up. Awesome. Okay, so Chris and I are in our offices so that we are able to be without a mask. We're just by ourselves in our offices because we're going to be doing quite a bit of talking, and it's just a little bit easier that way. So I just want to give you a little bit of a context first. So right now we have a website on our district website that describes our education plan, and it includes some data sets. And so what Chris and I have been working on is updating those data sets with more up-to-date data sets, some new data sets, and reorganizing what they look like. At this time, the website that's currently online and publicly available is not what we're going to be seeing tonight. What we're seeing tonight is a draft. I will be sending the board a link to this so that you can take a look at the data that we look at this evening on your own, have a bit more time with it, go through it a little bit more thoroughly, because we're just not going to have time to go through all of it. There's a lot of data. It is still in draft. There are some formatting and some things that we still need to work on, but our goal is to have it on our public-facing website very soon, so that the public also has access to it. Some of the data sets that are on our current site are the same as what we're going to be looking at tonight, but there are some new things as well. So that's just a little bit of a description. So I think what we're going to try to do is Chris and I will try to, we're going to do a little bit of tag team. I'm just going to start by sharing the screen and bringing up the first little bit of the site here just to show you. So just bear with me. This is it. Okay, does everyone see something that says data organization?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. All right, so this is just one page under the assessment menu item. So this is the one that's called data organization. We may change how this is actually organized. Well, that's some work that we have to do yet. I also want to start by thanking Kelsey Biln here in the office, who has just put in a whole lot of work and energy into this over the last few weeks. She's been working super hard, and I just want to acknowledge the work that she's been doing. So as Lisa was saying, this is the data that helps us to monitor how things are going with our education plan. And so what I like to do is just tell you a little bit about how we've organized it first, and then we'll dive into it. So first of all, what we've done is we've organized the data into two sort of big ideas, and one would be the data dashboard, and the other, the data sets. So in a nutshell, the data dashboard is a big collection of data that just is important for us as a school district to scan and to look and see how we're doing in certain areas. Some of the items may not be directly related to our specific goals in our plan, but it's very important data that we need to be aware of and also respond to if things aren't going well. So there may be some areas that aren't necessarily, as I say, directly related to the big goals in our education plan, but there are certainly lots of things that we have to be very aware of in terms of how things are going for all areas of student learning, student wellness, state safety, and well-being. So that's the data dashboard. It allows us to sort of go through and do a scan at a wide variety of data sets that we feel are very important. The data sets, the data set is a collection of data then that is more related directly as indicators of the goals in our education plan. So that would be our medicine wheel. So learn, critical thinking, create and innovate, collaborate and contribute, our competencies. So what we've done is we're working to set up containers that will hold data that relates to each one of those competency areas. So that in a nutshell is how we've organized the site. So we have the data dashboard, and the data sets. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to walk through the data dashboard. Even the data dashboard is further organized into with some headers, just to help sort through it, because there's just so much data. It would be confusing to have it all in one big list. So we've just organized it in themes. And then once we've gone through some of that, we'll take a look at a little bit of our data set, probably focusing on the Learn button, because there's a lot in the Learn button. And again, there's a lot of data to go through. And then when you have access to it on your own, you can be more specific. The other thing I wanted to just bring your attention to before we get started with the data is the Provincial Framework for Enhancing Student Learning. We call it FESL for short. So the provincial framework is a framework that all districts are required to follow. And in the framework, there are some requirements for how we report out on our data. There are certain data sets that we are required to report out on. And we're also required to disaggregate those data sets in a certain way. So throughout our website where we've presented the data, anytime that there's a data set that is specifically required for the framework or FESL, we actually put in brackets next to the label of the data information FESL to show that that's actually a specific piece of the framework. So I hope that's clear. What I'm going to do now, I think, is I will stop sharing and I'm going to let Chris take over, because he is going to take us through the first, I don't know, 4 or 5 groups of data within the dashboard are primarily secondary focused. So he's going to take us through that, and then we'll swap, and I'll do another group of data once that's finished. So I'm going to just stop sharing right now, and Chris, you can take the helm.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Paul. Really appreciate the introduction. Now I'll do the same thing and share my screen. Okay, so I want to make sure, can everybody see the data dashboard screen? There we go. Yes, okay, here we go. So as Paul said, under our data dashboard, when you scroll down to that part of the website, you can see the headings here, and then each of those data sets are further broken down into pertinent data. So we're going to start by looking at our 6-year completion rate. And again, these are a representation.
Always see just cup screen on the screen. You can't see
okay. Sorry, folks, that's odd. How about now?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, because it's showing clarity on my screen. It may be. Okay, one moment.
We had it for a minute and then it disappeared.
Okay.
There you go.
We got it.
Okay. All right, and we'll have to look to the side. And my apologies for not looking into the camera. But as I stated, this is the 6-year completion rate. So this is the percentage of students who have received their diploma within 6 years from the first time they entered grade 8. So if we take a look at where we are now, of course, we spoke about this at the earlier in the year. So this data is always updated for the previous school year. And as we can see, we have a 99% graduation rate for all resident students compared to an 86% completion rate in the province, a 92% graduation rate for our students of Indigenous ancestry compared to 71% in the province, and a 98% completion rate for students with diverse needs compared to 74% in the province. So again, we know about this information. We're very proud of all the work of our school-based administrators, educators, support staff, district staff, really you folks for approving our plan and supporting us in our work. So this is a really lovely thing to share. And what we've done is portray that information both in a table and in a bar graph. And so that's a change in formatting from before in order to have some consistency. And we also feel that it looks better, a little bit easier for folks to understand. There's some other information about graduation rates that I'm going to just quickly go over. This is data sharing that if in the entrance of their grade 12 year, they are eligible to graduate in terms of being on track for having the credits that they need, how we're doing in that respect. And again, you can see for resident students and our students of Indigenous ancestry, we have very high completion rates. And then we note in red, wherever we differ from provincial scores or provincial data, we have that in red. So we will further explore what's happening there. So again, all of this data provides us with curious questions about our next steps and where we may need to put more energy. This chart shows our first time grade 12 graduation rate. So these are kids who enter into grade 12 and then graduate in that same school year. Again, there's going to be some correlation between this information and the chart before with some differences in some of the numbers. But again, we have a 90% all student graduation rate compared to 81% in the province, 78% for our Indigenous students, 64% at the provincial level, And then again, reflective of some work perhaps to look into for the graduation rates for our students with diverse needs. New this year, and as part of the ministry accountability framework, they are asking all districts to also report on their 5-year completion rates. So these are students who enter into grade 8 and finish in grade 12. So that's graduating within 5 years of entering high school. And again, here are rates for the last school year compared to the province. A 96% completion rate for resident students compared to 85 in the province, 77 for all Indigenous students compared to 62% in the province, and an 80% 5-year completion rate compared to 64% in the province. So again, some very, very good news. On the site too, you can also see it broken down into information directly provided to us from the ministry. This is actually part of the FESL report, which shows a line graph representation plus comparisons between the district and the province. So I won't go through this data because it is the same as above. So our next piece for secondary is the new graduation assessments. So these graduation assessments have replaced provincial exams. And so of course, we're only going to have data related to the number of years that the graduation assessments have been put in place. The other caveat to keep in mind is that students have up to 3 opportunities to write these assessments before they graduate. So because we have just had our first year of literacy last year, these students will have more opportunities if they choose to write this test again. However, our results are quite heartening. Compared to the province at 74%, we have 79% of all resident students scoring a proficient or extending. So for the graduation assessments, of course, like elementary, we've moved away from letter grades for these assessments and are instead on a 5-point proficiency scale. And the target is proficient. So they're absolutely proficient. They're meeting those standards or they're scoring beyond them. And again, we've got some very nice results for our students with, of course, we do want equity and parity between all students and especially our Indigenous students. So while we're doing better than the province, we are absolutely focused on increasing or decreasing the gap between these different cohorts. In numeracy 10, the first exams happened in 2017-18. This was a soft launch, so not all students took the test at this time. However, in 2018-19 and 2019-20, this was all numeracy 10 students, and we can see that we have a little bit of work to do according to this data, and we will be looking more specifically, breaking the test up into its different component parts to see where our students are doing well and where we need to have more attention. So we're slightly below the province in all resident students. We're slightly above for our Indigenous students, and quite below with our students with diverse needs. And again, this would cause us to delve a little bit deeper into that data to unpack that and see why that may be. So again, we have a representation in our table, in our bar graph, and then in the line graph provided to us by the ministry, where they give you a little more detail about how we're doing in relation to the province. And again, I want to reiterate for us, we're actually not interested at where we are compared to the province. We always want to be better than the province. What we're interested in is enhancing learning for our students. But it's a comparator that we know some folks may find useful. In literacy and 12, sorry, the numeracy 12, that actually is not an exam. I'm sorry I missed that. We'll take that one off. But there is a literacy 12 assessment that will happen for the first time next year, and we'll see if we can get the data ready for that. If not, it will be available in the 2022-2023 year. Okay, so this part of the website will obviously undergo lots of changes as we have more data to share. Okay, another thing that we think is very important to pay attention to, and is something that we've been reporting on for a number of years, is our grade to grade transitions and secondary readiness. So I'm just going to jump down to the FESL parts for the sake of time, and I'll talk a little bit about readiness afterwards. So the grade to grade transitions, which you've seen before in a line graph, is just speaking to the percentage of students that successfully transition from one grade to another. And consistently as a district, and as a province, let's give credit to everybody else as well. As a sector, we do very well at moving students forward, and the vast majority of students, regardless of what cohort they belong, do successfully transition from one district, one grade to another. I think it's also important to recognize that this also includes out migration. So if a student has been registered in our district and then moves to another district and has some challenges, that gets captured in these results as well. Okay, and again, on the site, when it's in polished form and released to the public, you'll also be able to see again how we stack up compared to the province in this line graph, and further information shared below. We know that one of the factors that has contributed to our phenomenal grad rates for all students, and especially students of Indigenous ancestry, is our readiness data. So this is based on the numbers of students who we track, who are on track for graduation by earning the credit they need towards graduation. So we begin meetings with our schools and with myself and the district principal of Indigenous education to track all of our students in terms of how they're doing towards graduation. So we look at the core courses for graduation, and then based on if they're on track or not, or they've earned that credit towards those courses, we give them a readiness score. And obviously anybody with a readiness of 3 or under, we meet with the schools to discuss the plans for supporting those students. And that's resulted in lots of opportunities for providing kids with the support they need to graduate. So last year, and again, I would point out this was a COVID year, we did see a drop in readiness that have the scores here compared to the year before. I will point out that there is no provincial data to compare, because as far as we know, we are the only, or one of a very few districts that actually engages in this work. And I will also point out that we will be adjusting our readiness data to reflect the absolute importance of our accomplishment in CLE, CLC, and that will actually replace the physical education credit. So that will be an adjustment that we will make in future. So this is our grade 10 readiness, our grade 11 readiness here. Okay. And we also do readiness for post-secondary. If that's a direction that a student would like to go, we want to ensure that all students, or as many students as possible, have that option to choose post-secondary. And that readiness for university, we're ballparking around a C+ or better in the core courses. And again, we're going to make the adjustment as necessary for CLE, CLC. And you can see our trend over time and in last year. So again, we did note a slight dip in that readiness, and I can assure the public that our schools are working very hard right now to address these situations so that our students are able to experience great success and be ready for university if they so choose. Okay, I'm going to go back to the organization, and I'm going to take a quick look at post-secondary transitions. And this is a comparison between how we're doing compared to the province in terms of our students transitioning to a post-secondary institution right after high school. And we do note that our students in our region tend not to go directly to a post-secondary institution at the same level as the province right after finishing high school. You'll note that we do have massed information from the ministry, and that has to do with population, not how many students necessarily went to university or a post-secondary institution. However, when we look at, here we go, our 3-year grad rate, we see that we creep up. So the trend seems to be that our students, for various reasons, tend to attend post-secondary institutions later than their peers when compared to the province. So that's an interesting bit of data to speak about. And then we see actually for, again, not sure why, but in kids who graduated in 14, 15, actually were above the province if they were of Indigenous ancestry for post-secondary enrollment after 3 years.
One of the interesting things about this data set is that we only have, as a province, we only have data for British Columbia post-secondary institutions.
That's right.
Yeah, sorry, Chris.
Thank you.
I wasn't sure if you were going to mention that or not. So it is possible. If there was ever a situation where, for whatever reason, our district in particular had a high number of students who tend to leave the province to go to post-secondary institutions, that would actually kind of reflect negatively in our data. So that's a little bit of a weakness in the data that we have access to.
Yeah, that's true, Paul. That was going to be my punchline at the end, to say that this issue has been raised with the ministry at a number of meetings that we've been engaged in when they've been sharing how to access this information. And we're not the only district who feels if this is going to be public information, that it may skew results to districts outside of metro areas where many of those institutions tend to be. and we want to ensure that we're actually comparing post-secondary access fairly, and to at least include Canadian universities rather than just BC institutions. So thank you very much, Paul, for making sure I covered that. I'm almost done. I've timed myself here, and I realize we've got a lot to get through and don't want to take over all the time. So what I wanted to say in general is that at your leisure, trustees, please take the opportunity to look through more of the data, because we certainly didn't cover everything to do with secondary, but we will do our best to update the information as we receive it from the ministry and other sources, and look forward to talking about secondary data at a later date. So with that, thank you very much for your time. I'm wondering, are we going to pause for questions now or at the end, Paul? What would you like to do?
Well, I think it would be a good idea maybe to take a bit of a pause to see if anybody has any specific questions about the data set that you just reviewed.
Perfect. Trustees?
Rick, may I?
I was just speaking on mute again. Any questions from trustees for Paul or Chris on the data that you've been shown today? Yes, Rebecca.
I guess just a comment that is an area of concern for me is the 5-year transition for Indigenous learners. That it's so much lower than all students, and I see it's like that for provincially as well, and we are doing better than the province, but it's just a little disturbing for me.
Were you specifically which? Let me scroll through for you here.
It was 5-year transition.
5-year grad completion.
Right. Oh, grad completion, 5-year, yeah.
Oh, grad completion. Thank you. I will take us to there and state as I get there that absolutely. I mean, that is the nature of our and the focus of our work. And again, I think it points exactly to that we have we've made some great strides, but we certainly have a much longer way to go. I will also say that I also want to very much recognize from my learning support teacher days that we also do want to respect the notion that some students, many students, do take more than 5 years to graduate, and that notion of allowing for more time for students to graduate with fulsome experiences and a fulsome set of credits is sometimes preferable to rushing students through. I know that's not what you're saying, Rebecca, but I see your point that if regardless, we need to get these gaps much tighter. Agreed.
Yeah, and being a product of SD 48 myself, and having 3 daughters go through, and we all did it in the 5 years as Indigenous learners. So I just
apologies for sure. I wasn't ascribing anything to do with. I was speaking more of students with actually about the special needs. Absolutely, there is no reason why, based on ethnicity or indigeneity, we should have such a gap. That is something.
And I recognize that when I first got on the board, whatever 2008 or something, and our Indigenous graduation rate was at 35%. So I see how far we've come, and I appreciate that you acknowledge that we still have work in front of us.
Yes, we do. Yes, we
Absolutely.
do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Celeste, I think you had a question.
I was just curious if we will ever be able to look at this data broken down by community, or do you have access, not necessarily publishing it, but do you as administrators have access to see what the differences might be between the three main communities?
Yes, we have access to that granular data. The reason that's not shared on a public website across the board is that given some of the smaller numbers, it's always a concern about potentially identifying students or particular cohorts of students. But we are more than happy to share that granular data with trustees. But it's not something, I mean, some of this data, of course, we're happy to share at the school level, but we just have to be cautious of identifying particular students or groups of students.
So Celeste, data like the assessments, literacy and numeracy data like grade to grade transition, those can be broken out by schools and communities, but completion rates cannot. So the only thing schools can report out on is first time graduation and eligibility to graduate, but not on 5- and 6-year completion rates. So those ones we don't have for communities or schools.
Okay, thank you. And then the last comment that I had was, I just wonder if some of the variation that you're seeing with the provincial data, might be due to things like socioeconomic status. So just, I think sometimes interpreting what's in front of you, it may have more to do with things like that than necessarily what the district is doing.
Right. Thank you for that observation. It's
Hi,
useful.
Chris. Hi, if I could jump in. Celeste, I hope I didn't cut you off. Okay, great. So tricky on Zoom sometimes. I was just wondering, maybe for any of the public that are watching, I wonder if you could speak to the idea of what it is our district is doing differently than maybe is happening in other parts of the province that are contributing to our high rates of overall graduation success.
So maybe I'll try and answer that briefly, because I do know that in our follow-up session, so this is kind of the what, and then the following session, we're going to go more into what we're doing well to get these results, and also how we're going to address some of the concerns that have been expressed tonight. So again, in a nutshell, I truly believe that it is the incredible hard work of our school staff, our on-the-ground people, our district staff for supporting the learning and the teaching, the board for approving the education plan. And I think it's that fidelity to the education plan that has provided us with the positive results that we have. And again, if you recall the refresh where we dug deep in looking at our data, while we're proud of our graduation rates, we also asked ourselves, what can we do to ensure even greater gains for all students, to increase life chances for every student in our district? And I think that it's that clear sense of purpose and focus on who we are, what we're about, and what we strive to be that has given us some of these positive results, but at the same time have set the clear direction for where we need to go moving forward.
Thanks for that, Chris. I think that's really good information to share with the public. And I think for me, it all comes back to our enduring understandings and having the idea that diversity is a strength, personalization is the way. I think especially the personalization, I think that's something that's really contributing to the success of our students, in that we can take our learners from where they are and adjust to bring them to the next level and keep moving them forward and forward and forward in a personal way. And thank you to everyone for being committed to that. I think that's a real key to the success of our students. So I'm super proud of you guys for all that work that you do.
Thank you very much. Anybody up? Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to pass it back over to Paul, and I'm going to stop sharing. And there you are, Paul.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. Okay, so I know, so what Chris just showed you was really just scratching the surface of what we have on this website. And so what I'm going to try to do is move through this as efficiently as I can. We're not going to go through and show you everything because we would be here for a really long time, and it is overwhelming to have this kind of information presented to you in this format. So we're sensitive to that. So we're going to get this to you as a board so that you can take your time and go through and have a look at everything. So by the time we get to our next board meeting next month, you'll have had a chance to look at it, think about it, develop some new questions. I think the point Celeste made is a really good one in that, the more that we look at this data, the more questions that are generated even in our own minds. We look at some data sets and we think, that's interesting. I wonder what that means. That doesn't seem to make sense. I think we need more information to better understand what that number means. So we're always, trying to drill down as much we can into this data to make as much meaning of it as we can. So the next set of data that I was going to go through is the FSA, but I'm gonna not do that right now because FSA results actually come up twice. We've included them in the dashboard section, and they're included again in the learn section because they're directly related to sort of, that literacy, numeracy skill set in the learn button or in the learn area. So that's where we'll take a quick look. But in the meantime, what I'd like to do is just take a really quick scan of our vulnerability data. And while we've seen a lot of really positive data in our grad results, we know that we have a lot of data that isn't so great. And we've been looking at this for a number of years, and this was one of the things that helped us to do our refresh of our education plan and make the changes that we did, because we know we have a lot of things that we still really need to work on that are very concerning. So as we go through this data, you'll see evidence of that for sure. So we start off with our suspension rates. I think most people are familiar with that. We've talked about it quite a bit. I'm not going to dwell on it. We've just seen over years how that's declined and feel that that's a result of the culture that we've built here. And certainly students are more apt to learn when they're engaged in school and learning. We go into just a small section here, secondary course selection. So this first bit, I might take a little bit of explanation just to set you up for success when you're looking at this on your own. There may be a way that we can do this better, but this is kind of where we started with, and we're open to feedback on how it works for you. So this first section here is just basically showing enrollment in all high school math courses, so grade 10, 11, and 12. So this is all courses. So for example, in 2015 and 16, of all the students in the district who were registered in grade 10 math, 87% were non-Indigenous and 13% were Indigenous. 13% actually reflects that's about the average district-wide Indigenous registration that we have on most years. But you can see that it fluctuates through here. So this particular table is just here to help give you a frame of reference for the next couple of tables. So the next table, for example, shows percentage of student enrolled in workplace math. So in grade 10, we see over the years what the percentages are. So they're colored in this sort of purple color just to help, because there's so many numbers, it just helps us to make sense of them. But if we look up, so in 2015-16, we would expect that if district percentage of enrollment is 13%, that's the number that we would expect to see in most situations, just because of the natural distribution. Here we see 34%, and that's the same thing right across the board. So up here, the numbers change a little bit over time, but here there's a consistent overrepresentation of Indigenous students in these particular courses. And as you know, this is a very recent discussion that we've been having about student registration in some courses. So this is just something that we have to pay attention to, and we have to act, because it's just not okay, especially if students are not getting the options that they that they deserve to have when we're doing the best we can to design for excellent learning environments. We know our staff are working very hard at this, but we also know that it's time to take another look at it to see what we can do differently. We continue here with a percentage of students enrolled in foundations of math and pre-calc. Similar explanation of how these tables work. And then percentage of students enrolled in Calculus 12. Now, it's super interesting because the closer we looked at some of these numbers, over the course of the last week or so, putting this together, there are a few areas here that kind of spark our curiosity. So I think moving forward, there's going to be some further data on this that we want to look at, just because, again, to some people's points earlier, sometimes these data sets just spark new questions, and we have to dig a little bit deeper as we go. As we continue on down in our vulnerability data, this is another a FESL data set here. And this is a survey question. Percentage of students that report 2 or more adults who care for them at school. And so this is the Provincial Learning Survey that happens each year. Grades 4, 7, I'm going to get this wrong. I think it's 10 and 12, but I might have that wrong. In any case, what we've done here, again, with these colors, red just simply means it's below the provincial number. Green is at or above. It doesn't mean that it's good or bad. In some cases, a red still might be a reasonable outcome. It's just simply an indicator that it's not as high as the provincial outcome. So that, pardon me, is, oh yeah, here it is here, 7, 10, and 12. So, excuse me just for a second. So that's the data there. And because it's FESL, again, you'll see these charts like you did before. Anytime there's a FESL data set, we've included these particular graphs that the ministry has provided to us. Another FESL requirement here is percentage of students reporting a positive sense of school belonging. So again, really, we'd like to see these results improve. Of course, this is a very important aspect of our education plan, the extent to which our students are feeling welcome and supported in our schools. So this is one that we really need to improve. And looking at these provincial results, I would argue that it's probably something we all need to improve. Just moving along the line here, percentage of students reporting feeling safe, same idea. Now, this particular data set, the ministry was not able to provide the disaggregated results for Indigenous and students with diverse needs. It's not reported because this one is anonymous, so there's no demographic information associated with this one. So it's just all students for this particular one. And again, we really have some work to do here on increasing these results. Percentage of students who feel welcome at school. Similar story. We'd like to see that improve. It's super interesting too, because as we've gone through this data, we've seen some very specific changes during 1920, which is a little bit of a window into the impact that that last year had on our students. Percentage of students with positive response to the question. This one is about exercise. How many hours did you exercise or do physical activity? So we have a little indicator here about physical health and exercise for our students. Percentage of students who feel that school is preparing them for a job in the future. This question was only asked of our grade 10 and 12 students. Again, that is good information for us that we can use to consider when we're designing for student learning. So again, there's a lot of data even just on this page. I'm not sure if I'm going to go through all of it. It's just a lot of information. I know that it's on a screen, and in some cases it's not very big, so it's hard to see. This one, percentage of secondary students with aspirations to finish school. Our latest results show 85% of, and this is from our school survey, by the way, non-Indigenous students are indicating an 85% positive response to that question. Indigenous 66, and that is that's disappointing. And we see that for Canada, the benchmark for all students is 81%. For whatever reason, we don't have that disaggregated for Indigenous, so we'll have to go back and see if we can find that too. Percentage of secondary schools reporting indicators of valuing school outcomes. Percentage of secondary students indicating positive sense of belonging. So there are a couple of questions about belonging that we can actually compare just for that. You know, it's good to have that comparison for two different measures for a similar question. And so on. So there's lots of specific questions here that I'm not going to read through every one of them. I'll invite you to do that. Some of them have to do with relationships, that how students feel that their relationships are with their teachers, with their students, the relevance of learning, aspirations to attend post-secondary. So here's a piece of data that we can actually look at along with our post-secondary enrollment data. Self-esteem, anxiety, etc. So there's lots here to look through. And then at the end, we have a couple of key ones. Percentage of students in care by population. This is very concerning. So again, students who are in care. And 95% of the students who are in care in our district are of Indigenous ancestry. This one is enrollment in alternate school over time. So what this shows is sort of a gradual increase in the percentage of students enrolled in alternate school who are of Indigenous ancestry. So with that, I'm going to leave the dashboard section. And I'm just going to go to our Learn just to show you. Now, these are the data sets that we talked about earlier. And I promise you, I'm not going to spend a really long time on this because I know we're probably reaching our saturation point with the data. But I just wanted to show it to you just to illustrate how we've organized it. Now, I'm just going to mention for Create, Innovate, Think Critically, Contribute, and Collaborate, there's not a lot there. What we've been doing is looking at the surveys and the survey questions and trying to match survey questions with how they fit with these areas. So there's a little bit of data, but this is an area that we know that we are working to definitely boost. We have some ideas around it, and so we think that that's going to be improving soon. But for now, there's just a few data sets. However, for Learn, there's quite a bit, because this is where we find communication literacy and numeracy. So under Learn, there are 3 bullet points here that are the descriptors for this particular competency. You have core skills, personal responsibility, health, well-being, and then personal cultural identity, self-advocacy, etc. So this whole page is sort of organized on those 3 bullet points. Most of the data here is for core skills because it's, again, literacy, numeracy, and communication. So we have FSA here, and actually the FSA is a little bit more specific because we also include item level responses. And what that means is some questions of the FSA, well, maybe I'll wait till we get to that section just to highlight what that looks like. So just to start here, we have a variety of data sets, and we've tried to organize this so that they're all under kind of one specific area. So for example, we're starting with reading. I'm noticing that this header is incorrect. We need to, I think reading needs to be in a different spot there. But in any case, the first section does focus on reading, and most of the data here, actually all of the data here focuses on reading. So what we've done is we've taken a few different sources of data that pertain to reading, put them all together so that it's a little bit easier to interpret. In the past, what we've done is we've organized the data by the data source. So we'd have data for reading in all kinds of different sections. Here, it's all sort of in the same place, which makes it a bit easier to interpret and make sense of and triangulate and all of that. So we have student report card results. We have some survey data about how students feel about reading, and we have the FSA data, which I'm not going to go through specifically. But again, you'll see FSA is a FETSL requirement, so we see those same charts from the ministry. And again, there are a lot of results here that we should be paying very close attention to and taking some action on and to improve. So I just want to quickly point out, we haven't used this data before as a district, but it's really interesting data. So FSA item level data, essentially what this means is all of the questions on certain components of the FSA are divided into different levels of thinking, or different, they have different complexities to them. So level 1 would be simple recall questions. Level 2 would have a few more skills and concepts. So the reader shows initial comprehension and subsequent processing of text or portions of text. And then level 3 is actually more of a strategic thinking kind of question. So you can see how they just increase in kind of cognitive rigor. The reader applies deep knowledge to go beyond the text to explain, generalize, or connect ideas. So what happens here is we have actual results for how our students have done in each one of these levels. So for example, in grade 4 reading, and the way this is reported, by the way, is percentage of correct responses. We might have to do a little bit more thinking about what that actually means, but that's how it's reported, percentage of correct responses. So for level 1 questions, we see that generally on the grade 4 reading FSA, 65% in this most recent year and 62% for Indigenous. Then we'll just skip down to level 3 and we see that we have 60%, which is a bit below the province. And for Indigenous, it's 58%, which is above the province. So that's what those item level data sets are about, and just helps us to delve a little bit deeper into the FSA data. FSA data is helpful. This is even more helpful when we start to try to pinpoint and triangulate certain skills that we want to focus on. And in essence, these level 3 results, could be direct evidence of competency development to a certain extent. These are report card results. The other quick thing I just wanted to touch on, I'm just going to back up a little bit here because I think I forgot to mention it when I was up here earlier. What we're trying to do where possible is show cohort data as well, because when we can do that, it can be a really powerful way to look at data. So here, where we have multiple years of report card outcome data, what we've done is we've color-coded different groups. So for example, here in grade 2 in 2017, this blue group, when we go to next year and they're in grade 3, we can kind of follow the blue and see how this group does over time. And then when they're in grade 4, in 2019-20, they're blue down here as well. So we've done our best to kind of show the cohort groups and how they're doing over time. And so whoever's, viewing the graphs, it helps just to be able to focus your eye on those groups. So just continuing on here again, we get into our writing section. So the data that we have on writing is all together again, so that we can focus in on that topic. So again, we start off with our district writing assessment data that we do each year, and we get into grade 4 writing on the FSA, grade 7 writing on the FSA, and a survey question asking students how they feel as to whether or not they are feeling they are improving in writing. And then we can see how students are feeling about that. Again, going on to numeracy, this is where we have all most of our numeracy results that we have, and we do plan to continue to add to this as time goes on, if need be, or as new questions emerge and we need to dig a little bit deeper. This is report card data for secondary students. Then we have something here that is in the wrong spot. We have literacy 10. So we'll make sure we get that moved to its correct place. And then there's some more numeracy results down here. So it just looks like we had a bit of a blip with just where some of the data was placed. So we'll get that fixed up. So just scrolling down, more numeracy results here. Again, all of the FESL data has these charts directly from the ministry. And I think you can see, what we've tried to do is, as Chris mentioned before, is keep the formatting of all of these tables similar, so that as you move through the data, you don't have to keep readjusting to a new format. It hopefully is easier to navigate. This red line here just simply delineates the current year, just so that your eye can go to it a little bit more quickly. And I'd love to spend more time looking at the specific results, but it's really tricky. Just again, in this format, it's a lot of information. And what we're again trying to do is set you up so that when you go in on your own, you'll be able to navigate through easily and then take notes, make some observations, develop some questions in preparation for next month. And then we get into personal responsibility, health, well-being, and the same thing. We've just mostly used survey data for this section. So as you can see, there's a lot of data here. And, data is great, but in order to make meaning of it, we have to spend some time looking at it, analyzing it, asking questions, discussing it. There are lots of areas here that we recognize we need to work on. There's no question about it. There are lots of things that are concerning in the data. There are lots of things that are really positive in the data. We've been working with the ministry to help us interpret some of the data. They've provided us with some insights that are super interesting, that are helpful. So I think that's where we're going to stop. Just before we do stop though, again, I just want to remind you of how to navigate this. There are a couple of ways. One way And we may change this. This is just where it's at right now. One way is to go into the assessment menu. You can click on this arrow next to the data dashboard, and it brings up all of the data dashboard sections. So these are all the sections in the dashboard that you can work your way through. The other way to do it, the other way to do it is to go into data organization, where we did the sort of description, and links to all of the data sets are also here in these drop-down menus. So the first section again is the dashboard. Just drop down the menu and you can see each of the data sets are listed, and you just click on it to go right to it. This might be the easiest way to navigate the data. You can even open them all up and have a look and look at them all listed there. Just to get that kind of a sense of all of the different data points. So right on cue with my voice starting to give out, I think that's where we're going to stop. And I'll just unshare the screen. There we go. So certainly if there are any questions, again, for Chris and I will be happy to try to answer them.
Any questions? I've just got a quick comment. And first of all, thank you for that. And it's really impressive that we have such a rich array of data to work from. Way back earlier in this presentation, Cynthia asked a question really with response to some of the more positive graduation results and that sort of thing. The question was, what are we doing well to achieve those results? And I think this last part of the data helps to give an important part of that answer, which is that we don't hesitate to try and uncover the less attractive data, the stuff that reveals where we have significant work to do, and expose that to the light, and then strategize around it. And that's an indication of a pretty healthy culture in our school district, and speaks very hopefully about what can happen for our students as time goes on. So that's my way of thanking staff for leading us in those kinds of directions. I'll just stop one more time. No questions for staff on that. And just to ask Lisa, that concludes this report.
Yes, thank you, Rick. It does. And we have all of this on our website. There's much more on the website as well. Rick, Paul and Chris spoke to, how long it would take to go through all of it. It's there, it's open to the public. And as well, we've completed a Framework for Enhancing Student Learning report to the Ministry of Education that we will be sending out within the next couple of months. And that document will also be on our website. And next month, we will go through, so what are the implications of this data, and what is a way the board might take a look at this through, assessing your strategic plan. Are you on track with your strategic plan? Are there areas we need to look at? And then finally, in June, we'll do the here's what, now what, which is now what are we going to set as our service plan for next year to address the things that we saw in our data.
Great.
Just one more comment, just to clarify, right now, what we just looked at isn't quite yet on our public website, but it will be very soon. We're going to provide the trustees with a link to what you saw tonight, and then it will be available to the public hopefully by the end of this week, if not in the next couple of days.
Thank you. Okay, moving down the agenda, that was item 5B. The next item is called trustee items. Were there any trustee items for the public meeting? Hearing none, we go down to item 7, board committees. The first one is the Committee of the Whole, which met today, and I can give a very brief report just for the benefit of the public that's attending. At the Committee of the Whole report, the board reviewed our board evaluation process, which we're going to revisit next month more deeply. We updated or received updates on our planned 2021 education sessions. Ed sessions are sort of professional development for trustees. And the 2 remaining topics, we had one today, which was about our collective agreement with our CUPE employees. We have another one coming up about to learn more about inclusion. And we have a third one to learn more deeply and in more detail about our SSTA collective agreement. We also talked today about AGM for BC School Trustees Association. AGM starts tomorrow. And so we just did some planning around attending and participating in that. And finally, we reviewed the process for questions of clarification from the public, which we shared with you earlier in this meeting. That was the Committee of the Whole. Policy did not meet today. Finance Committee did not meet today. And I'll ask if there's any report from the Indigenous Education Council.
There was some motion from the Committee of the Whole.
Oh. Got them in front of you?
Yeah. That the minutes of the Committee of the March 10, 2021 be accepted.
Right, hang on. Yes, sorry, skipped over that again. Good work. So did you just make that motion?
I did so.
Good.
And I'll second it.
Thank you, Ian. Any discussion on that, accepting those minutes? All in favor? Great. Thanks again, as usual, Rebecca, for catching me on that.
So now we're down to Indigenous education.
Yep, we are.
So our since our last meeting, we the SD 48 Indigenous education has not met. However, the Indigenous Education Committee for the BCSTA did meet on April 1st. And we have sent forward for the Board of Directors' approval the final draft of the first of 5 publications that that were in our knowledge series, as we're referring to them as. And it is the intent of it is to be a resource guide for the BCT agreement. We had one of our trustees. We have 2-year terms, so her term is up. So we are going to miss Nancy Rampel on the committee, and suspect that after AGM we'll have an appointment of a new representative for that committee. And again, we're working with PLC, Professional Learning Committee, and on how we can learn in Indigenous ways, words, culture, tradition, and how to incorporate that into how we do business. And that's it for that.
Thank you.
There's a motion there. Do you want me to read the motion?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So that the minutes of the Indigenous Education Council meeting held on January 15, 2021 be accepted.
Thank you. Seconder for that. Thank you, Ian. Any discussion? All in favor? Good. That's carried. I believe there was a Public Relations Committee meeting today, and it may well be that Cynthia has a report.
Yes, we do have a report. We did meet today, and this report's pretty brief. I guess some of the main things we wanted to bring to everyone are surrounding our website. As people know, or maybe don't know, there was a soft launch to our website almost 1 year ago today. And we've had it up and running. It looks really beautiful. And we were hoping that if there was any members of the public or any trustees or anyone at all who would like to provide some feedback on the website, that they're welcome to do that. And they can contact Jen Morrison at jmorrison@sd48.bc.ca and let her know your thoughts and feelings about the website. Just as a reminder to everyone, the website is updated regularly, and that we would encourage everyone to go to both the district website and their school's website to find all the information that you could possibly ever want or need about SD48 and about your own kids' schools or contacts to get in touch with people. So those are two things we would really encourage people to do: visit the district website and their school's website. And some of the newer things, well, not particularly new, one thing very new and one thing not so new. The not so new thing is just to bring everyone's attention to the school news app. And this is an app that you can use to get real-time, up-to-date information that's coming from your school or other sources. And you can get that on your mobile device by going to the App Store or wherever you get your apps and downloading that. And of course, that's free. And I would encourage people to use that. It's really, really a great tool. It's up to date. It's things like, oh, the bus is running late, and it will pop up on your device. So that's a good tool, I think. And the last thing I wanted to bring attention to, I was going to get Archie to help with this one, and that's going to the school's website to see our new blog. Very exciting. The SD48 Learning Hub. So maybe Archie, if you could just show people how to get there. So it's super simple how to get there. You're going to go to the homepage for SD48. Then you're going to click on Families, and you're going to just scroll down to the SD48 Learning Hub, do a click, and that will bring you to the blog. And on this blog, there's all sorts of stories about the exciting and incredible work that's taking place in the different schools in our district. So I would encourage everyone to take a look at that and just see the marvelous things that our staff and students are doing on a daily basis. So thank you to Jen, who I think is spearheading this particular part of our website. And that is pretty much everything that we wanted to bring forward from the Public Relations Committee. So thank you for that. Are there any questions?
Seeing none.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for your help, Archie.
No worries.
Let's move down through, that was public relations. So item 8 is, the major heading is general. There's no business arising, but there are a number of information items, and starting with COVID-19 update, Lisa McCullough.
Okay, thank you. As everybody is aware, recently we were instructed by the medical health officer to enhance our safety measures in our safety plans for the districts and schools, in particular related to personal protective equipment and specifically non-medical masks. So we were sent home communications to all the families on March 31st. We sent it out to our staff as well. And now the new mask mandate is that all students in grades 4 to 12 and all adults are required to wear non-medical masks or face covering at all times while they're indoors or on a school bus. And then there are some exceptions to that situation, like when you're eating, if you're behind a barrier, some people are mask intolerant, and so on. And then that list was also provided. Students in K to 3 are now encouraged to wear a mask indoors and on school buses, but are not required to do so. So all of these updates have been posted on our school and district websites, have been updated in our safety plans at the schools and at the district and submitted back to the Ministry of Education. Quick update on the number of exposures. We've had 39 potential exposures in the new year. This has impacted approximately 146 students and approximately 24 of our staff. It's been 19 potential exposures just in March and to April, and 16 exposures since the start of the spring break. We keep an eye on our federal and provincial funding that was provided to us for our safety and for student learning to support us through the COVID pandemic. And we continue to ensure that schools have the money they need for their either safety or technology or student learning resources. Quick reminder that in planning for year-end events, I had previously said we were waiting to hear back from the health authorities whether there would be relaxed measures in place for graduation celebrations and ceremonies. And at this time, we've been instructed that those safety measures are to remain tight, stay in line with the safety measures that currently exist, which means that almost all ceremonies and get-togethers for our graduations will have to be adjusted as they were last year. So Chris Nicholson continues to work with our secondary principals and the parents who work so hard on these things to see what we can do to find suitable ways for those students to be honored and also to have some celebration. And we're sorry for the students once again this year not having the traditional ceremonies and rites of passage that we've become accustomed to for students graduating after grade 12. Nevertheless, we remain very proud of them for their hard work, and especially during such difficult times for students to learn and show their learning. We also want to acknowledge our staff in maintaining 100% in-class instruction. About 99% of the time, other than classes that have been put in isolation, which has been very rare, which has given our students an exceptional opportunity during these times compared to many of the high schools in the province that have gone down to 50%. And planning for school startup in September, we've asked to be ready for multiple stages and be ready to pivot as always. I mentioned before that stage 1 is the stage at which we would come back under normal conditions, yet the provincial COVID planning team is actually adjusting the safety guidelines under each stage. And even under stage 1, there will now be some relatively minor safety measures that would be expected to remain in place. So that's our most hopeful for September, but we are also ready to pivot to other stages such as stage 2 and stage 3, which would see us reducing density and learning cohorts and so on back in our schools. So we'll continue to apprise everyone of what we hear related to school startup. Now, the most important information that has come through in the last few days is related to vaccinations for K-12 staff. And then even this evening, we have received new correspondence about 15 minutes ago. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Phil, who has been sitting over here reading this so that he can give us the latest update right now.
Yeah, so as you know, that currently there's a mass vaccination campaign happening in Whistler for people that live and work in Whistler. Working with Vancouver Coastal Health in the last few days, they've just announced that the entire K-12 sector in the Vancouver Coastal Health region will be eligible for vaccination over the next several weeks. The timeline right now is from April 16th to May 10th. Everybody in the K-12 sector working in schools or on other work sites are eligible to get vaccinated. But there's a certain amount of supply that is available every week. So Vancouver Coastal Health will be working with school districts to inform them which schools are eligible for the vaccine, and this will be based on either recent COVID cases in the area and all of the COVID exposure data that they have. And this will be determined on a week-by-week basis. So we will be hearing more from them as the week ends, and then we'll be meeting with them every week to find out which one of our schools are eligible. We will work with Human Resources then to notify all of the staff who are eligible at that school, what the process is, how they sign up, and go from there. So this is hot off the press. It's a really exciting development for all K-12 staff in the Vancouver Coastal Health region, and we'll be getting information out to our staff after this meeting is over.
And I think that's it for the COVID update, Rick.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, just going through my agenda here to see what I'm missing. So we are, were there any questions, first of all, for Lisa on that update? Okay, let's go to the Squamish catchment area update, Mo.
Thank you. So as you know, we've been talking about this agenda item over the last year, and even prior to that, we've been talking about some of the planning. So I'm not going to really go into a lot of the history because I think for the most part, a lot of our trustees have it memorized. But then also we have recorded board meetings just for historical information, going over the prior meetings, what we discussed, including the most recent town hall that we planned and we had on March 17th, 2021, which just for the public that might be out there haven't watched the very exciting town hall on YouTube, please take a look at it. There wasn't a lot of public. We had one member of the media there, and basically right after that, they issued a nice and accurate article about just the catchment area review and the potential recommendation that we're looking into to change the catchment area for the North Yards, Loggers Lane and Finch, and Tantalus and Skyridge Place over due to some pressures that we were having in Squamish Elementary and our fiduciary duty that we had to show to the Ministry of Education for a capital plan to be approved, and any capital plan for that matter that requested any type of extension, yada yada. When it comes to the ministry actually looking at it and approving it. So once again, this was something we were actually required to do, and the board still needs to look into because Squamish Elementary is still facing some serious enrollment pressure issues over the coming years. So with that said, we decided to pull out Audible during the catchment area town hall that we had where all the trustees were there. And the Audible was that, okay, well, because we never had a lot of public or any public for that matter present during that town hall, and probably because we've been very open about this and we've had it over and over again in board meetings and also on the newspapers, etc. We decided that, okay, well, not only were we going to have this town hall YouTube video on or Zoom video on our website, but we were also going to kind of open it up for feedback that we might be getting for subsequent community members who may be impacted where they decided to view that town hall later and they had questions. And I haven't gotten any questions to date. In reality, the survey that we had open prior to that town hall, we only got 5 comments in there. 2 of the comments were opposed to it. 2 of the comments were supporting it. One of the comments kind of just wanted a little bit more questions. And the only thing that at this point that's new that we still need to look into as a mid-council is that, okay, well, what does it look like? And we did talk about some challenges there if that was the case when it comes to supporting a third French immersion school. and that was some feedback. We didn't hear from the town hall or the public, but in reality, we did hear that from a few of our staff meetings that we attended in Squamish Elementary and in Brackendale, and then also in I think one of our PAC meetings that we attended to. So in reality, as a main council, we still need to look into that option, and we are still on track when it comes to where we were supposed to be. In reality, we were anticipating a little bit more feedback coming in and us analyzing it and presenting it to the board in April when it comes to feedback and other feasible options when it comes to anything that's there with the current options that we had, including, for example, grandfathering the siblings off if they're in the current school to the current school, and basically only having the catchment area changes for Squamish Elementary and then Mamquam and then Brackendale being applicable for new students that didn't have any older siblings in those current schools that I mentioned. So with that said, what we'll do in May is we are going to continue having our internal conversations with staff, but a lot of the onus will be on, okay, well, what are we going to talk about when it comes to updating the board in May, and then allowing the board to make a decision in June off the recommendation that the board is actively considering right now for that catchment area review. And obviously, prior to that, we are, as a main council, going to start, and Ian Curry leading the way there, is going to start looking at some of the analytics and, okay, well, what would that look like if there was a third French immersion school, and the costing and all that stuff I could help with, obviously, and having a lot of conversations around that, because in reality, even though it wasn't there during the surveys or the town hall, that was still a question that was raised in the PAC and staff meetings that we attended. So with that said, that's just a quick update on where we're at and the next steps when it comes to the catchment area review. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mo on that update? Okay, then the next one I have is Phil talking about Sea to Sky Safety Net.
Oh yeah, so every now and again I get to update you on some of the really cool community partnerships that we have and some of the outcomes from it. So for the past several months, I've been fortunate enough to sit at the table with some really great people from the Whistler Blackcomb Foundation and a bunch of community partners and health and mental health partners in the Sea to Sky corridor about putting together a resource for anybody in the Sea to Sky corridor to get more information about health, mental health, and who you can contact and what providers are out there and how to select a provider. There's a really in-depth resource called the Sea to Sky Safety Net Support Resource Hub. So it was all done with some grant monies from the Cas Amsterdam Foundation. Again, it's just a tremendous resource for people who don't know where to go or what to do or just have general questions. We've been sharing it out on our district website. We've been asking our schools to share it out. It's just a really, I think it's just a really excellent resource. So that is my my piece about the Sea to Sky Safety Net.com.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thanks, Phil. Mo, you have the next one, New Spaces Funds.
Yeah, is that mine or is that Phil?
No.
Is that okay? Sorry about that. I was just busy coordinating some other things, so sorry about that, Mr. Price.
What, all right?
Yes, I just need a couple of seconds to get organized.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, there we go. I opened it up. Okay, so this is just advising. Okay, so this is just advising the public that recently the District of Squamish issued a letter out regarding, which was also in their open municipal chambers meeting or council meeting, which was just regarding kind of a letter lobbying around, just some additional provisions to be put in when it comes to the New Spaces grant funding that's available for early childhood spaces that we had originally, or the District of Squamish had originally applied for and got a grant for the Valley Cliff Elementary to house early child care facility in. But in reality, the grant was nowhere near that was approved compared to costs that were associated with not only the construction, but also some things like the floodplain requirements, etc., in the District of Squamish. And so the letter was just basically saying that, hey, you know what, when approving grants, just please consider some unique geographical factors that might be out there that would be increasing the costs, because in reality, a lot of the times, whether it's the District of Squamish or any other organization, including SB 48, the money is tight and there isn't a lot of funding. And in reality, if you're looking at like a $500,000 shortfall, or in this case, I think it was almost double the cost compared to what the grant was, that's not easily found. So in reality, it was just a letter kind of lobbying around that. And I just thought I'd just update the public and also the board during the open board meeting that there was this letter released. And also for reference, we have included the letter, which is also public once again, available on our agenda for the open board meeting. So if the public want to take a look at that, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mo? Okay, moving down the agenda. Trustees, you have a couple of attachments, field trips and media reports. I'll just pause and make sure there's no questions about either of those reports. Thank you. We have no correspondence, no items for discussion, no policy motions. We do have some action items in the form of, we have some school fees and some motions to accept around the annual school fees. And the elementary section of that is going to be presented by Paul.
Okay, thank you. And so you each have a copy of next year's proposed fee schedule for elementary school. These are just fees that schools may charge for things like school supplies, in some cases musical instruments, and there are very few changes to the elementary schedule. As a matter of fact, any of the changes are actually mostly reductions in the number of items or even in the cost of the items. So that's really all I have.
Okay. Any questions for Mo on that? Sorry, any questions for Paul on that? And we'll do the motions after we've received these reports. Okay, Chris?
Okay, so in terms of secondary school fees, again, if you look at your package, you will see some slight increases in some costs, usually due to material costs, staffing costs, etc. So again, this isn't profits, this is just to cover increased costs. I will also point out for clarity for the public, I appreciated the note under the ski, board, and bike academy that a note was put in place so folks understood that the $1,700 cost of the academy does not include the Whistler Blackcomb pass that students can choose to purchase if they don't want to pay the daily fees. So that would be $500. So we just felt it important to be a little more transparent about the costs. And then there is actually a $2 reduction in the cost of a lock from Pemberton Secondary School. Don't know what $2 buys these days, but every little bit helps, I'm sure. And then also important to note, a set cost for scientific calculators at Pemberton Secondary School is a flat $100 with the full deposit refund given back when returned in good condition. And that
is about it.
Okay, thank you. And there's two motions that come out of this. First of all, I'll just pause to see if there's any questions on those fees. All right, we got two motions. Someone prepared to make the first one.
I can do that.
Thank you.
That the Board of Education approves district elementary school fee guidelines for the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
Thank you. Seconder for that. Thank you, David. Any discussion on those school fees? All in favor? Yep, that's carried. And the second motion, do you want to go ahead, Rebecca? Thank you.
Sure. That the Board of Education approves district secondary school fee guidelines for the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
Thank you. Seconder for that one. Thank you, Ian. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. We have no items to be brought out of camera, and now we go to questions with clarification from the public. And I'm going to go to Mo, who's been receiving questions.
Yeah, so I've scanned my inbox and I have received no questions that could be answered at this time.
Yeah, and I'll clarify Mo's answer. We received one question, but it's a question about a personnel matter. Personnel matters won't be discussed in public meetings. They're private and confidential. So that's why Mo made a caveat about having not received questions that we're going to deal with. We did receive one, but we won't be dealing with that question tonight or at any time. And yes.
From the in-camera meeting, we did have items we did pass a motion.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was supposed to be on the open board agenda.
No, I think it's just a summary in camera minutes.
Okay, so it was under the title items to be brought out of camera. So that's why I was mentioning.
Yeah, I think that's what you mean. The summary in camera minutes are to be approved.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
So those don't hit the board, the open agenda.
No.
Okay. Clarifying.
Thank you. So, having completed the business this evening on the agenda, I would accept a motion for adjournment. Thank you, Ian. He seems pretty anxious to adjourn by the enthusiasm of that wave, and seconded by Rebecca. And once again, my thanks to all the staff for all of their support, and thanks for any interested public who have been attending this meeting, and have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Before everyone hangs up,
Thank you.
and maybe once we're not live, I just wanted to give a traffic update.